Okay, I think we're ready to start, or that is. Let's see if I can turn my music down. Hey everyone, let's get the webcam going. Oh, thank you so much, AC. Really appreciate that. Love some feedback. Thank you so much. That's deeply appreciate it. Yo, Lou in the chat. What's up? Okay, so I was technically going to be using my offline lab today for doing this. But it seems to have died again, like last time. So I'm going to be using something called Snap Labs. Snap Labs is something we have a license for at Trustosec. So I want to thank Justin for letting me letting me use it. But basically, we have a template for CA, well, a Windows environment with a CA setup. So I'm going to be using that. And yesterday I also added some more vulnerable templates. Might also go through how I did that, because that was a pain. Everything with certificate services is a fucking pain to get working, man. Swear to God, it's a pain in my buttocks. Everything just never sort of works the way you intended to, and the certificate stops working. Yeah, it's a pain. Right. Well, Active Directory is somewhat better, but like CA services, Kerberos and CA services. Oh yeah, no, that's impossible. That's not even a thing anymore. Microsoft seems to have just given up on trying to ship like anything remotely secure. When their solution to fixing Petit Potam and all that stuff is to turn off anti-element authentication, then yeah, most environments today would just straight up break if you tried that. So it's going to be interesting. Okay, so the schedule for today is to talk a bit more about just go to the cloud, right? The cloud, which is so secure, the cloud where people find fucking 1991 era RCEs by sending a post request that doesn't include basic auth, which gives you root. What the hell? I mean, yeah, even if you don't know, I'm referring to the Azure. What was it? VC Mon Azure RC. I can't recall the name of the software, but Microsoft pre-installed a bunch of their Azure services with this management suite. It's super vulnerable to remote code execution, and they didn't even bake in automated updates, so it's basically dead. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna give my internal lab just one more try to get working. If not, I'm going to just connect to the VPN to the Snap lab, which I know will be working. There we go. It finally worked. Just had to reboot the machine. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can actually request the TGT from this ticket. That's the only sort of way for me to know if it is actually valid. So I'll try that off screen, and then I'll start sharing my screen. I promise. I promise, guys. Do 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 do. Have you guys had a great weekend, huh? Sunday already. That means it's soon Monday. Soon back to work, people. Whoop whoop. People get so pissed when I'm excited for Monday. How has your weekend been? Mm-hmm. Good evening, Punk 322. Just about getting started here. Just need to make sure that my lab is working. I don't want to spend hours on stream today trying to get it to work. Certificate. Pass the hash. So just testing offline, and then hey Fury, welcome dude. Haven't seen your nick in here before. Welcome to the chat, man. See if that certificate will give us a TGT. Hi dude. Okay, I'm gonna use the lab. Okay, or actually no, that's probably okay, but I'll use the lab just to make it easier. So let's just open a brand new terminal here. Actually, let's close everything out. Everything except crackmap exec. And open a new window. There we go. Okay. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna connect to our lab environment VPN, which I think I just dropped in documents. Nope, that dropped in desktop. Attacker one, yeah. So sudo open VPN. Let's go into screen session first. Screen S VPN. I'm a screen guy. Sorry if you're a Tmux guy. Probably hating watching this. So I'm going to connect to that VPN. And you know that screen session is still running in the background. So now I should have a new tunnel interface. Weird resolution in as you can't see the text, or... Oh yeah, I think it just has something to do with this. Not sharing that. No, it's oh yeah, no, it's there we go. It's just me cropping. No, I'm not sharing just the terminal. I'm sharing the whole VM. Okay, so we have a VPN connection now, and then we should start doing some enumeration, right? So when you're, this would be more for pen tester's perspective, where you drop an actual physical device on the network and you have access to Linux distribution on the network. I guess it could be if you're having a direct VPN interface in as well, but you know, yeah, this will be sort of a Linux non-beacon based attack, like no assume bridge. I guess it might be assume bridge, but you're not working from the restrictions of a beacon. You have a fully fledged system. So the scenario would be you're on the network, you ran a responder, you picked up a couple of creds, or you sprayed and you picked up a couple of creds. So you have access to a normal domain account, like a normal base domain user account. And you want to start enumerating ADCS. Basically, you want to see if the domain has a certificate authority installed, if the domain uses that service, what sort of services is installed within that, and also what sort of templates they have. Do they have any runnable templates, etc. So the first thing, let me bring up my cheat sheet, which I'm working on. It's just a gist, simple gist, where I have ripped commands out from different resources. I'm trying to sort of put it together for my own use, and maybe somebody else want to use it as well. It looks like this. I dropped the link earlier in this chat on Twitch. Okay, so sorry, Punk, I saw you stream now. So Active Directory Certificate Services. It's basically an attack vector released by SpectreOps a couple of months back, or I guess like several months back now, where it allows you to abuse certificates mainly to gain persistency to an account, to escalate privileges, to basically own the domain. I guess I could post the original blog post. Give me a second. This is like the original blog everybody's referencing to. There's also a gigantic white paper in there that you could read. Really still trying to digest that. Haven't really put off a day's entire day to that yet. So going off it, that's how I learn. Basically, oh, sorry. Okay, so first off, you want to use a tool called Certi. So Certi is much like the binary or the Windows tool Certify, which was released by SpectreOps, just in Linux shape, right? So it allows you to list out the services, the templates. You can even automatically find vulnerable templates, stuff like that. The only caveat with this is that it has to use Kerberos authentication. which means that you have to have, well, first of all, you have to have credentials, and then you have to have a TGT, which you can feed it to use the tool. A TGT, ticket granting ticket, right? Or did I get that wrong? Pretty sure it's ticket granting ticket. Yeah, ticket granting ticket. You need that to be able to authenticate using Kerberos. There are a couple of ways to get that. You can either request it using InPacket's get TGT with credentials or a hash for that matter, or you could steal it out of an existing process using like Rubius dump. So if you for some reason also have access to a machine, you could run Rubius dump and it will dump all the tickets in memory, and there might be a TGT which you can convert from, I think it's in the base64 Kerber format, into a C cache and then used like this. So I'm sure if you Google ticket granting service, pen test, whatever, you will find a bunch of resources on that. But what it tells us is that we need to get ourselves a TGT first. So I should already have Certi installed. Oh, sorry, I'm drunk. Nope, it's from documents. There we go. And unlike much of the other tools, there shouldn't really be any major specific dependencies for Certi. You just you clone it, seed into it, then you install it, and it's available everywhere. And then you want to get a TGT, right? So again, I'm going to assume that I already have some credentials on the network. So I'm just going to run this. The DCIP is 10.20.10.10. Again, this is just something I know. And then the domain is testrange.local. The user account I will be using would be snap user, which is for our lab, and the password would be, give me a second, I can't recall what that is off my top of my head right now. That would be snap to learn, like that, and that should request us a TGT. One thing to check is to make sure what kind of DNS settings you are on. So right now, I'm actually having the wrong name servers. I gotta fix that. There we go. This is important. DNS and full like host names or FQDNs, fully qualified domain names, when working with Kerberos is a key. There's so many holes, like so many rabbit holes to jump into or to fall into if you're not very specific about what you define. Now, I requested a TGT using the fully qualified domain name. I have to use that through all my commands. If I try to use just test range afterwards, it won't work. Kerberos will be like, nah, that doesn't work. That doesn't match with what we have in our ticket. It doesn't work. So when you're working with Kerberos, be very specific. Fix the domain resolution on your side, meaning add it to your host file, and then make sure everything else is fully qualified when you run the commands. That's just a big tip right there to avoid having long nights with Kerberos. You're going to end up having long nights with Kerberos anyhow, because Kerberos is like it's tricky, but yeah, that's just my take on it. Okay. So we got a TGT, which means that we can use the Certi tool now to authenticate. So going back to our tool here, we got to set the environment variable. And note on this variable, if you don't give it the full path, it is directory specific. So if I were to do, Kirby, if I were to do this right now and move out of this directory and try to use some tool with Kerberos authentication, it will fail because you didn't define the full path. If I stay in this directory, it's fine. Again, just another like a hole to fall into. So in this case, I would do the whole path. I would do home, Kali, desktop, Certi, like, oh my god, Certi, right? Yeah, and there we go. So now it can always find it. Okay, next up, let's list the certificate authorities on this domain using this command. Again, you got to be very specific with the domain here, right? So using the DCIP 10.20.10.10, and then the domain, again, we got to use the full qualified domain name now, test range. local, and the username being snap user. And let's see if it works. Pre-authentication failed. Okay. Oh, thank you guys. You guys are a savior. Documents. There we go. Saved me. Thank you so much, guys. You saved me already. Cert is very difficult to find. What is the name of the author? So check my. I didn't actually link it in my gist. No, I didn't. So this is the Git repository again. This is the gist I'm working on. So I'm currently working on creating this gist and using this for when attacking PKI. So feel free to use it. It's not done by any means. Probably full of grammar mistakes, maybe some command mistakes as well, but just a baseline for me to use. I think it's rather new. I think that's why it's hard to find right now. No, it's actually a month old already. But yeah. There you go. Thank you so much for noticing my spelling grammar like 2 commands into the stream. That's just how it is. Okay, so we identified one root certificate authority, and then we identified some enrollment services. So we can use either this enrollment for enrollment, or we can use this. I know based on the lab that this has web enrollment enabled. This does not have. That's also another thing with Certi, is that at least how I understand it, Certi doesn't use HTTP to generate the certificates. It does it over, again, I think it does it over RPC, which means that web enrollment technically doesn't have to be enabled. Now, might be wrong. I'm just saying this right now. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. That's how I understood it right now. Okay, so we know what the certificate service is called, and we know also. I guess we also know. No, we technically doesn't know what the host name is yet, but anyhow. Okay, so we know it's a certificate service. So let's just want to keep notes here. So let's just say, okay, we know that this is the service name now. That's the most important part for later, is the service name. And then, so this is the service name. Now you would actually want to try to find the actual server name, like the host name. Might be the same as the service name, but not necessarily. So there's 2 different things. Thank you so much, guys. You got me. Okay. So, okay, now we got the certificate of the services. Let's see what else can we enumerate here. So if you do help, I think we'll list out what we can enumerate. So we can enumerate classes, template, CA, service, and throughout. Okay, so we did CA. Let's try services. Or service, sorry. So these would then list out the actual DNS names for them, which is great, right? So we know that this is the service name and this is the actual DNS name for it. And then it just quickly lists out all the templates. It doesn't give us any detailed information about the templates, but it's good to know anyhow. So if you want to list out the templates, that would be, I think it's just templates. Yeah, just template. And then this will break the output almost, but this will list out every template in that CA or that CA service. So there's one thing I want to talk about here, and obviously I'm not going to go like super hardcore into depth about this, but I just want to tell you what to look for when you're looking at templates. So there's a major thing that makes the templates useful for us. If you look under PKI extended key usage, you will actually see different definitions of what you can use this certificate for. And what we want to look for is 2 things. We want to look for either client authentication, which means that we can use the certificate for authentication against Kerberos and get a TGT from it, which is key, which is basically like the major thing of this attack, is that you can use the certificates to authenticate to the domain. Another, right? And then another extended key usage I want to look for is smart card logon, which is the same thing. You can use the certificates with this parameter defined for authentication. It's really important. So in the last video, or the last time I talked about ADCS, we were able to get the certificate from the machine we were on, and that allowed us to authenticate as that machine account, effectively allowing us to privilege escalate, right? Go back, and I think that was two or three streams back. Check that out. It was a really good video, right? Ransom, let's go. And that's cool. So that's the main thing of it, right? And we're going to that. We'll talk about that a bit later with relaying and stuff, but basically allows you to, if you can capture authentication attempt from a computer or a user, which a template is valid for. Again, we'll talk about the enrollment rights now, but which it is valid for, and they have client auth or smart card logon, you can use that certificate to request the TGT. That's the main gist of it. That's like the key number uno thing to remember. And then let's talk about enrollment rights. So even though you find a template which has client authentication, it doesn't mean that the account or the computer or user account you can enroll or can get that certificate. So you got to make sure that whatever you're authenticating as can actually request that certificate enrolled for it. So if you check under enrollment rights, you have usually groups defined, but also sometimes you have specific computer accounts, user accounts, generally most groups. But yeah, there can be specific user or computer accounts that are allowed to enroll as well. And we see that, for the certificate called vulnerable user, all domain users can enroll. So as long as I can crack any account, or get authenticate as any account, either via password spraying, which would be useless, but password spraying, or NTLM relaying, or triggering NTLM relay, or triggering authentication from a computer account, a user account, I could enroll and get the certificate. So yeah, if I'm a user, then yeah, I can get the certificate. And then, so that doing relaying and getting a certificate on behalf of a user or account, that's what ESC8 is. Basically just relaying an SMB authentication attempt to HTTP and requesting a certificate on behalf of whoever that authentication attempt came from, whether it's a user or a computer account. Then, if you want to talk about domain privilege escalation, we have ESC1, right? Which is extremely powerful and is basically this little tag here. And my understanding of this is that it allows us to request a certificate for any user or any object in the domain. And yes, you heard that right. So if you see enrollee supply subject, it basically means that we can request the certificate as any user in the domain or a computer. Right? So in this case, in this vulnerable user template, if I am any user in the domain, I can request this certificate, I can authenticate using this certificate, and I can make this certificate be valid for any user in the domain. If you didn't catch that, that's fucking horrible. Genuinely horrible. You can do, it's an instant priv-esc. You're 2 lines away from priv-esking on the domain. And it's really cool, but it's not great. So when you watch these templates, look for client authentication, look for smart card logon. When you find a template with that, can you enroll that template? And then look, can I enroll that template and give it any subject name and basically impersonate any user on the domain? That's like the 3 things, the 3 steps to domain compromise these days, basically. So in this case, this template I created yesterday, duplicated it from the normal standard user template, enabled this, good to go. I can now request this template and be admin. We're gonna do that, okay? So I'm an attacker. I identify that this template is badly misconfigured. This is my way to getting DA. Let's look at the cheat sheet again, right? So the first thing I need to do is I need to request the certificate. I need, based on this template, and I need to give that certificate an alternate subject name for any user or computer account I want to become. So if you scroll down, that's exactly what we do here. So I'm just going to copy this in, and then I'm going to change it up, right? So the domain would be testrange.local. The username would be the username we are authenticating as, not the username we want to become. Every kid should learn this at kindergarten. Cool. Okay. So domain, and then the user we are authenticating as, not the user we want to become, just the authentication user. So that would be snap user. And then the CA server, that would be what we picked up earlier when enumerating in our notes, cert.testrange.local. And then the CA service name, which is something we also picked up earlier. And then the K basically tells us that we want to use Kerberos authentication. So again, that KRB5 CC name environment variable has to be specified. The DCIP would be 10, 20, 10, 10. And then the template would be the template we would like to target, which in this case would be a Voln user. Voln user. And here comes the juicy part. So the alt name. What user in the domain do we want to become? So generally we would do some sort of enumeration. I think the sneakiest way to do this would be to request a certificate and make it target the actual domain controller account, like the DC account. Log into that DC and then perform a DC sync attack against another domain controller. Because that would be, I'm not saying it would be hard to detect, but in terms of detecting the actual DC sync, that would be harder because, domain controllers do DC sync between each other. But yeah, that would be something cool. But in this case, we're just going to put snap admin. So we want to become snap admin. So let's see if this goes through. Yeah, there we go. So basically, it's requesting a certificate. It got it issued. The alternate name was snapAdmin. We got it stored on the disk, and we can now attempt to authenticate using this certificate and take over the domain. So let's request yet another TGT from this certificate. So let's go back to our cheat sheet. I have a whole section called authentication using certs. And it's basically using a brilliant tool by we're basically using a brilliant tool by the one and only Dirkan, which is this stuff right here. PKI init tools. Check out this blog post he posted on this. Basically a way to generate TGT and TGS tickets from a certificate. Usually, before this was released, you would have to do it from Windows, which obviously we're avoiding entirely during this stream. Again, so let's just copy the cheat sheet command down. No, actually, first we need to get this. So we need to move directory. So I think I have it just here. Yep. And then I do not think we need any new dependencies for this. I'm pretty sure we don't need any dependencies for this. No, I don't think we do. Okay. And let's copy this authentication using cert. So that would again would be the domain. So testrange.local. And then the username, snap. So this now it will be snapAdmin because we're authenticating as snapAdmin. And then the path to the certificate file. So that would be one step back and then into certi. And then into snapAdmin. And the password is outputted here. So that would be admin. That's just a default password you have to set on the certificate file. So admin. And let's store that as snapAdmin TGT cache. Let's see if this works. There we go. And now here comes the cool part. So if you don't want to use the TGT to authenticate, you can actually get the NT hash using Dirkan's tools. And you heard that right. We got a question here. So the question is, will log differentiate between automatic and manual ticket request? Does a manual ticket request get logged differently than one made automatically by a service? So I have no idea. I'm sorry. Andrew, you in the chat? Andrew, you're in the chat, right? You're still here? Maybe he can answer that. I'm not even like a defense guy, let alone a defense expert, but I'm assuming My best guess would be no, because they're still requesting a certificate. I guess there would be maybe a different event log if you do it from the web enrollment. I would say, so Andrew says, I would say depends if you request it via NTLM hash or it will differ. Okay. So basically, if you do it, Certi does it via Kerberos and RPC, so that would be another, that would be one event log, and then there might be another one for tickets, sorry. Okay, sorry, you're not Andrew? Who are you? Aliases are hard, man. No judgment. Okay, so whose phone? Just waited, but you could be Andrew though. Okay. So what's interesting about this is that sure, we got the TGT, we can now use that TGT directly for authentication. We could generate TGS tickets from that TGT to access specific services on the computer, but it would be just much easier to just get the empty hash of SnapAdmin. So the way you would do that is again using another one of Durkan's tools, which is Python 3 get empty hash. Which I've already ran, but basically, as long as you specify this ACREP encryption key, and of course, this also uses the TGT that I just created. So I think you would have to export that TGT first. So if we run this now, it won't work. Yep. But if we do export again and we select that SnapAdmin TGT, and we try it again, boom, got the empty hash of the SnapAdmin. We can now use this with CrackMap Execute or any other tool to pass the hash and on the domain. So let's just confirm. Yeah, already did this when I prepared yesterday. But yeah, now you're basically domain admin now. You went from a normal domain user to domain admin because you could request a certificate that allowed anyone to set the subject name or an alternate subject name. And the way people would go from unauthenticated on the domain, completely unauthenticated, to this using PKI would be that you would, well, you don't necessarily have to use PKI, but with Petit Potam and Spool Sample, or I guess Petit Potam, because that, if not patched, works unauthenticated, you could force a computer to authenticate to you, and you can either downgrade that hash or you could relay it. And like I did in my last video showcasing ADCS abuse, we relayed the computer account hash to the web enrollment interface, and we got a certificate for that computer account, and we authenticated using that computer account. For sure, we do, right? So you could definitely do that as well. So I guess technically you could just use the TGT for this as well. So that would be test range. Actually, I'm not gonna do it because I don't actually want to dump the entire NTDS. But yeah, you could use SecretSum for that, or any other VME exec and whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? For this is a pen test, so. But this is pretty cool, and this is basically abusing ESC1, which is having that one parameter set. Now, do you use this attack when you're on a VPN and cannot capture hashes? So, I mean, you would be able to. You're thinking when. I mean, wouldn't responder just work just fine over VPN interface? I use this attack whenever they have a PKI available. Like usually I can get an attack path in using Petit Potam, Printer Spooler, Pastor Spring, Responder, cracking stuff, the typical stuff. But this is a whole new avenue for attackers. And being able to, like before this, an attacker would never take a look at the CA. Okay, I guess for this, obviously for this VPN it's allowed. But yeah, no, yeah, sure you could use this if you're on a VPN and you can't relay because you can't capture. Sure. But you would still have to get initial credentials though, right? But yeah, no, this opens up a whole new avenue, being able to abuse it like this, and not only being able to force authentication, not only to force authentication, but to wow, I lost track of what I was saying there, but yeah. So I wanted to talk. Speaking of responder, what's your thought of it? Can I mess up running large number? So I've never broken anything with responder personally, but I use responder rather like softly. With the new responder now, there's a new DHCP option which could be dangerous. I mean, I just use responder for the initial basic poisoning and to resolve host names if I want to use the host name in an attack or something like that. Right? Usually I just fire up responder in analysis mode for the first day of the engagement or something like that. Maybe not the first day, but like the first couple of hours of the engagement to get like an initial impression if there is any traffic to poison. Because if there's not, then, you know, I had this the last week where I was dropped into basically a data center and there was no major traffic, user generated traffic that I could attack or poison. So that was boring, but that's happened sometimes. But responder is still very effective. I mean, the best combination right now would be, you know, MNTM6, poison DNS, assign IPv6, get that back into responder, and then redirect, and then letting NTLM relay, do the relaying, because that's HTTP coming in, so you can relay that. I wanted to talk about that, so let's talk about WebDAV and why WebDAV is interesting. So let's pull up Dirk-Jan's initial blog post on resource-based constraint delegation. Dirk-Jan. Let's talk a bit about this, because this is interesting. So what he talks about in this blog is that no, this is an older one. I want to see a newer one. This is with ADCS. Yeah, I think it's this one, right? So basically, that would be amazing if he would want to do that. He would probably make me look like a baby, you know, having his, like, I would die for like 20% of his brain capacity on Kerberos. This guy is a fucking beast, dude. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him in real life at all. I've only talked to him like 2 times on Discord or something. Me begging for help about something, I think. I can't recall. But what's interesting about this, that in this case, he demonstrates using printdebug, and then a new feature that he added to NTLM relay, which was remove mic to exploit the CVE to relay from SMB to LDAP-S. And you probably didn't know this, but relaying from, or you do obviously, or I don't know if you know this, but when you get an SMB authentication attempt, you can only relay that to SMB. You can't relay that to RPC or HTTP or LDAP-S or whatever. Locked to SMB, right? But if the machine has WebDAV running, you can use the @ trick to force the authentication attempt to be HTTP instead of SMB. And with HTTP coming in, you can relay that to LDAP-S and do resource-based constraint delegation. Now, I haven't tested this so much. I did use this. We tried to exploit this on the last gig. We sort of ran out of time. Yeah, NTLM relay can actually, that's a cool trick. I wanted to show you that. So if you're doing a pen test and you're YOLOing, or you just don't care about making noise or anything anymore, and you want to target all services using NTLM relay, you would scroll up until you found the command instead of typing it all out. No, you would you could do this. So you could do NTLM relay, then you would do your normal target, and then you can do all, right? So here usually you would, if you were doing SMB, you would specify nothing. If you were doing LDAP-S, you would specify this, but you can actually specify all, and it will relay that attempt to all services, or attempt to relay it to all services on the machine, to try to get as much access out of it as possible, right? So if you do all, and then you get an HTTP authentication again coming in, you can relay that to quite a lot of services, if I recall correctly. But what I specifically wanted to showcase about this is the new command in crackmap execute. So right now there's a command in crackmap execute, or a module that got added that allows you to enumerate if web client or WebDAV is running on the machine. So I just status log and failure. That's, yeah, I have to specify the domain. What is going on here? Oh yeah, no, I know what's going on. It's 131, right? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah, I'm just really bad at using it. But yeah, it totally does. But basically, if you do -m and then WebDAV, you can enumerate web client if it's running on the systems. And the only reason that's interesting is because, let's say you do Petit Potam, right? Yeah, I'm actually doing it here. So when you do Petit Potam, let me go back and into Petit. Okay, let's not do that then. Thank you. No. Where is it, dude? Just ignore me struggling here for a minute. There we go. Cool. So Python 3 Petit. There's no. This is basically a junk VM I use just for streaming because I'm so afraid of leaking anything customer related. So I have a whole other VM I work on. This looks much better than this one. This is basically what I throw together half an hour before the stream, or like 15 minutes before the stream. But what I wanted to show with Petit Potam is that usually you would give it a listener and a target, right? So the listener would typically be your IP. So in this case, let's do 192.168.58.133. And then it will be the target, right? 192.168.15.131, whatever, which is the VM I have running. Now this is patched, so it doesn't work. I have to give it credentials. But what I wanted to showcase is that, okay, if this works, it will authenticate back over SMB, right? But if web client is running on this host, you can modify Petit Potam to make it authenticate back over HTTP. So if you go down to no idea where line that is, I think it's this one, right? The file name line, and you do this. So this would be the percentage S is just a replacement for the listener IP. If you did at port 80/foobar and then left it, if web client is running, that will trick the UNC path into authenticating over port 80, and 80 is HTTP, which you can then relay to anything you want. So this allows you to use Petit Potam for resource-based constraint delegation on the machine by forcing HTTP authentication back, relaying to LDAP-S, creating a computer account that can access this computer account with any use you want. I know that got complicated. If you're not familiar with resource-based constraint delegation, that probably didn't make any sense at all. But I'm going to talk more about this in the next stream. So I'm keeping this to the next stream, where I'll be experimenting with using WebDAV, using Responder to get a proper host name, because you can't use an IP. Talk more about that next week. But yeah, and this opens up a whole new avenue, because now you're not restricted to SMB. Use case would be you're firing Petit Potam, it's patched. You're firing Petit Potam with credentials, and you get back an NTLM-v2 hash, which you can't crack, and SMB2 signing is on everywhere, so you can't relay. Right? What do you do? Well, if a web client is running on that machine, you can force an authentication attempt back over HTTP, and you can relay to, say, LDAP-S. And LDAP-S, signing for LDAP-S is very often not on. Like I've done quite a few penetration tests now, and I very, very often find that even though SMB2 signing is on, LDAP-S signing is often just not on. And if it's not on, then you can use this to perform resource-based constraint delegation. I'm certain. So next stream, I'll talk a bit about zones in Windows and why you can't use IP, why you have to use a host name, how responder helps with doing that, and then just showing the attack, performing the attack with both spooler sample, petit potam, and relaying it. Okay, I take that as a okay, that it was a decent explanation then, but it probably was a horrible explanation. But yeah, that's the gist of it. That's the gist of ECS1, ESC1. Yeah, I saw that. So I saw somebody on Twitter doing that. So you can go from unauthenticated to authenticated petit potam, or to authenticated, but just using petit potam back to some host that doesn't have SMB signing, using the socks option in NTL and relay to use that session to enumerate SMB shares on machines who doesn't have SMB signing. And just relaying SMB is really powerful, especially against SCCM servers, because SCCM servers often have sites, or I think it's called subsites. I think it's called management sites and subsites, and very often the management site's computer account for some reason has admin privileges on subsites. And if they don't have SMB signing, then you can use petit potam to basically own another computer, because that initial computer relaying from has admin privileges to a target computer. You've done that actually multiple times. Done that against SCCM system. Very common. I would say, based on obviously my I have a really small example rate or whatever, right? So but in my experience, a lot of SCCMs are set up that way, having admin privileges on submachine accounts. So there's a very cool gist called From RPC to RCE. I think I've seen that. That's right. So he's targeting LDAP S. Yeah, this is basically it. This is basically what I'm talking about. I don't know if he talks about this. Yep, this works great. Yeah, this is basically what I'm talking about here. Cool. I knew I'm not the first to think about this or anything like that. Just cool. That is already a cool gist about it. I don't know. I'm not reading this correctly right now, but the main reason you can't use an IP for this, let me show you why. So if you look up some Microsoft documentation on trusted infranet sites and zones, and you go down to this, it says this. So this workaround does not work for UNC or file addresses that uses an IP address. For example, Internet Explorer identifies an IP share or file as being in the internet zone, even if you add an appropriate IP address to the local intranet site list. Basically, for this to work, you have to use Responder so it can provide you a NetBIOS name on the network. I don't know if he talks about this specifically here. It doesn't seem like he talks about this. There we go. Your attacker host logger, in the case of my example, needs to be considered an internet zone by target. One way to examine is by using the NetBIOS name of your attacking host. Right? Sometimes, yeah, you can either use your NetBIOS names, or you can just, in Responder, disable SMB, and I would say also HTTP, and then it will provide you with a NetBIOS name that it will like broadcast, and you can just use that. This is basically what I'll be doing next stream for sure. But I'll probably be, instead of using Rubius, I'll probably just use in packet get TGS and then use VMI exec instead of moving over to Windows. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, search connector file. Oh, nice. A dedicated web client scanner. Ooh, This is cool. I'm adding this to my gist for sure. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. And that's just because crap map execute is a dependency nightmare sometimes. So if you don't want to use that for some reason or you don't want to install it, you can use this. Cool. Thank you for that gist. Okay, so we'll definitely be talking more about this. And he did this with Petit Potam, right? Pretty sure you can do it with. I'm 90% sure you can do, or you could definitely do it with Printer Spooler as well. And there is another way to start web client on the machine without using the search connector file. It was kind of sort of publicly disclosed. It uses ETW triggers, and I'm sure if you Google correctly, you can find that. Not gonna share it because I don't want it to get. I'm 90% sure Microsoft won't even fix it. They will just say it's a no fix. But yeah, there's ways to get a web client running on, if you're on the machine. That is not remotely. If you're on the machine. Actually, next week, this would be super interesting to showcase off a beacon, right? Yeah, this would be super interesting to showcase off a beacon. So you would be running a beacon on the machine, and then you would like add a remote forward to say 8080, 280 on your attacker Linux client, and then you would trigger Petit Potam locally and capture and forward it to the LDAPs over socks. Yeah, we could probably do it from a beacon next time. Let's do that so we can do like a different take on it instead of doing it just like the gist. Yeah, right. Is that the one that has been deleted and then it's a web archive? Yeah, it's the one. It's this one. Yeah. So this is some C sharp show, or no? Is that C sharp? No, that's just C, right? C++, right? So there's another one that's in C sharp that I've been using, that I found using like the Wayback Machine, but it's probably online somewhere. Yeah. Okay, I want to show you one last thing, and that is how to actually create these vulnerable templates for testing, because that has been a pain in my ass. Because I'm not an admin. Okay, so you would log on to your, if your certificate service is running on your domain controller, it would be on your domain controller. If it's not running on your domain controller, it would be on that certificate service. Open the server manager, go over to tools, certificate authority, and then you can double click and you see certificate templates, right? And then you right click and you can't copy them, you can't edit them, anything like that. And then, but to actually do that, you right click on certificate templates and you click manage. I'm apparently like an admin noob, so I didn't know that. Then you would find the certificate. Usually I would just base it off like a existing certificate. So say I think there's a workstation or a computer certificate. I think there's a machine certificate. MMM machine. There's no machine certificate? Is it workstation then? Okay, let's just use this one. So it's a workstation application. Let's duplicate this template. Click OK. Open it up. Change it. So let's change it to workstation Waln, or I guess Waln workstation. Okay. So I initially thought that the like the I initially thought that the alternate subject name vulnerability, the enrollee supply subject, was something you would have to define here. But no, it's under subject name. So this would be the default one where you would have to provide, you would have to have this Active Directory information as authenticated when you arrive. But if you do supply in the request, then you can reply whatever, you can supply whatever you want. And then another gotcha is that when you duplicate templates, you have to make sure that the CA server has at least read access to the certificate. So you would have to go into security. Oh wow, want to become famous. Oh, do I want to become famous? Fuck off. Okay, so Right, so you will go to security, we click add, and you will do object types, computers, advanced, find now, and then you would find your ADCS computer account. I think it's just called, I think it's this. No, it's not this. Let's do advanced again. Let's do only computers. Search, find now. Oh yeah. There we go. It would be this computer account right here. Add that and make sure that computer account, I'll just give it full control. Probably a gigantic vulnerability risk, but sure. And then once you've done that, you gotta go over to certificate templates. New certificate template to issue, and you gotta issue that certificate. And now it's available through NTLM Relay. So just if you need that, there you go. That's how you duplicate existing templates, make them vulnerable so you can test them. It was, in my mind, it was a bit of pain to find how to specifically do that, but might just be my poor Googling skills. Well, I think that's going to be it for today. I'm really happy with not struggling at all this stream. You guys really saved me. Could probably wasted half an hour on that export variable KRB5 if you guys didn't let me know. So I really appreciate that. Deeply appreciate that. And I hope you guys learned something. Really hope. I think this attack is going to be thank you. Yeah, I think this attack is going to be relevant for like years to come, right? Really appreciate all the great feedback, people. So next stream, I'll be talking specifically about resource-based constraint delegation using PetitPotam over WebDAV. That's how we're talking about web client, WebDAV, how to trigger it, how to enumerate it, how to attack it, all that stuff. So be sure to join next time. Sunday, same time. That's 4 p.m. UTC. Really appreciate all the love in the chat. Really appreciate it. Yeah, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. All the streams are always uploaded to YouTube. I stream directly to YouTube as well as Twitch. So if you miss something, go back and watch the stream. Really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of Sunday, and do good on Monday tomorrow, work day, hey? Thank you so much, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.